Okay, we're live.
All right. Confirming member access. As a preliminary matter, this is the Harbor and Shellfish Advisory Board. I am the chairman, Andy Lowell, to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. I will state Peter Brace,
Aye.
Dave Franzuto,
Aye.
Tom Sidlowski,
Aye.
staff, we have Tara Riley.
Here.
She's muted.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you. That's okay. Anticipated speakers on the agenda. So far, we have Valerie Hall.
Here.
Thank you. Kona. All right, introduction to remote meeting. Good afternoon. This open meeting of the Harbor and Shellfish Advisory Board is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, Harbor and Shellfish Advisory Board is convening by video conference via Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. For Zoom meetings, please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, be aware that other folks may be able to see you and to take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Meeting materials, all supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. Meeting business ground rules. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda after they conclude their remarks. The chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in a conversation with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items with public comment, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment to those members of the public that have joined the meeting via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their names and be acknowledged by and speak through the chair. Finally, each or any vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. I'll call this meeting to order of the Harbor and Shellfish Advisory Board, November 3rd, 2020. It's now about 5:08 p.m. Has anybody else joined us, Mr. Brace?
Somebody's called in. Is that you, Sheila?
Yep.
Is that you, Sheila?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thanks for coming.
Great. Have you heard from Ginger?
Not yet.
Okay. Dan Pronk?
Nope.
Okay. I'll ask for an approval of tonight's agenda. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved. Tom Sidlowski.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Sadowski, second by Mr. Brace. All in favor? Tonight's
Aye.
agenda. Mr. Franzuto, is that you?
Yes, I'm sorry. Dave Franzuto, aye.
Okay. I vote yes. Mr. Brace?
Aye.
Yes. Mr. Sadowski, yes.
Yes.
Approval of minutes, draft minutes of October 20th, 2020. Does anybody have any revisions to be made or a motion to approve the minutes?
Mr. Chairman, it's Tom Sidlowski. I did not attend the meeting, so I'm going to abstain on this vote.
Okay,
I wasn't able to attend either, Mr. Chairman.
okay, correct. Mr. Brace,
Well, it's just you and me, so maybe we should wait until the
Right.
other that were at that meeting are here, so then we vote on it.
okay, we'll continue. Chairman's report. I'd just like to thank Tara for sending out a report to our last meeting. And Marine Department report. Sheila, please.
I don't really have a whole lot. We're just starting to close everything up for the season. Getting the booze out and starting to get dinghy docks and stuff like that out, but you know, we're doing what we usually do this time of year.
All right. And activity inside the marina. Any will there be any disturbance there that you'd be aware of that would affect fishermen or Coast Guard coming in for safe harbor?
On the boat basin or town pier?
Yeah, in the boat basin.
Yeah, well, they have a big construction project going on, but the scalpers are well aware of it and know what they need to do.
Okay. And board members, any questions for Sheila? Sheila, will you stay on board for our old business agenda items that relate to you
Yeah, I guess. Yep.
and new business items? Thank you, Sheila.
Welcome.
Natural resources or board members, any questions for Sheila? The Marine Department report specifically.
No,
Not at this time.
No, sir.
All right. We have a report from Natural Resources.
We do. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we're just also doing a lot of the same, shutting down, bringing our gear in, cleaning it, getting ready to actually start for next season. So our hatchery season is going to begin the beginning of December with restarting the algae and getting that going. And then we'll bring shellfish in. I think we're going to do it at the beginning of February this year, and then we'll start spawning again. The end of March is what we're slated for. We're working on some collaborations right now with the Nantucket Conservation Foundation. They're actually installing, I don't know, it's kind of like a living coastline in Pulpus Harbor in Medowee Creek areas where they're putting oyster castles out. And so what we're doing is we're assisting them with setting oysters on the castles. They're basically just like concrete blocks, like big concrete Legos that kind of fit together, and you can do different designs and that sort of thing. But you set the oysters, they will attach to these blocks and then eventually form a reef. And so that's a project that we're working on and trying to figure out the logistics for that, because it is a fairly big project. But I think they're mostly worried about the erosion going on in that area and some endangered species related to the marsh there. So that's one thing we've been working on. We've been talking to, we've done some interviews with Boston Public Radio recently on the scallop fishery and how the hatchery is involved with that. And let's see, proactively, we've been out there on our little skiff moving scallops that are at risk for stranding. So, I mean, there's not a ton we can do on our skiff right now because we only have about 2 dredges that are modified. And by modified, I mean we line them with a smaller mesh so that we can catch the seed, because a regular dredge, the seed won't catch, it'll just go right through. So we've moved about 100 bushels off of the UMass Field Station and Fulling Mill area to deeper water. So I'm glad we had a chance to do that last week, because we just had 2 days of a pretty big substantial blow. And so we walked the beaches this morning, and we do have some strandings that we need to deal with starting tomorrow. So there's about, I'd say 75 bushels up near Wawinit to the left and to the right of toppers that are still in the shallows. So we weren't too worried about organizing something today because of the wind and logistics. So we're going to go out there at low tide first thing in the morning, which is around 8:30. And we're bringing our boat up there with our totes, and we're also bringing our truck up there. So people and waders and push rakes, we put out a notice on our Instagram to see if any public would like to come volunteer to help get those seed into totes, and then we'll haul it to deeper water. We also, in addition to the Wawinit area, we had a smaller stranding, let's see, around 45 bushels in the rocks at Quays, and that area is kind of a pain in the butt to deal with because it's so rocky. So it's really hard to push rake from shore. It's also hard to get in there with a dredge. So we're gonna hit Wawinit first and then hit Quays second and see what we can do. And then off the field station, there was a minor stranding of 10 totes where we had been proactively moving seed the week before. So that's kind of, the priority is Wawinit, and then moving further down towards town for moving stuff. On the scallop front, I talked to Jeff today briefly, and he said that there are about 10 to 12 boats in town that are going out, and around 4 in Mattakit scalloping. They're in around 10:30 in the morning with their limit. And I just happened to look at the Inky report yesterday, and sales opened with $22 a pound retail. I don't know what the fishermen are getting. I haven't heard that number yet. And I think that's all I have for now.
Tara, to clarify, did you say you were going to be soliciting for volunteers tomorrow?
Yes, I know there was a post that went up on Instagram. I realize not everybody's on Instagram or social media. Again, with 75, it's about 30 fish totes of the black fish totes. So it's not a huge amount. It's a lot for our 4 staff. So we'd be happy if we got 5 to 10 people that came out to help push rake. And the main thing is, I mean, we need people with waders, which not everybody has. Because you do have to carry the totes to the boat to get them out into deeper water. And that's kind of like the most laborious part of the job. But having some people just in like some, rain boots that can get in like a few inches of water and push rake is helpful too.
Okay, and you're starting in Wawinit.
Yeah, we're starting around, they said 8:30 or 9. They'll be up there both on shore and via boat. And I imagine, we'll see what gets done tomorrow, and then I'll probably put out another notice for Thursday and Friday to see what else needs to be cleaned up, and we'll check out Quays again in the morning and see how it looks and see if anything changed overnight.
And is Topper's Pier still there?
It's not. They removed it.
Okay. Board members, questions or comments?
Andy,
Tara?
they remove that pier every year. And
Yes.
the scallops up at Wawinit are in really shallow water. So I saw that stranding this morning when I walked, and it was right where the waves are breaking. So anybody who goes to help, they're not going to be in very deep water.
Okay. Board members, Anyone else? Comments, questions for Tara? If not, public comments on Marine or Natural Resources Department's reports. We still have Kona and Valerie on board. Anybody else join us, Mr. Brace?
Nope, not yet. We're still just 9 people here. Well, yeah, I'm sorry. Jim Sherlin, can you hear us?
Yep, here.
Okay, Jim Sherlin's here.
Okay. Thank you. If there's nothing else for Marine and Natural Resources from the public or the board, we'll move into old business. Proposed liverboard regulation revisions, continued discussion. We've had some discussion in previous meetings, and with Sheila with us tonight, she's mentioned that she has some issues that she'll be working on and trying to put onto paper this winter. So as her season declines with activity, Sheila, you want to share some of that with us?
Yeah, I mean, we just got to take a look at it. We have yet another liverboard up on the beach after this last blow, and it's becoming a problem. So my concern isn't so much with the liverboards. I mean, other than, we need to think about whether we're going to require insurance or something like that, because the town always ends up eating this. We're still in court with Sean Lafferty, and Charlie McGowan's vote still is up there in Quays. That's on private property, so that the town isn't going to have to deal with that. But Emmett Gullick's vote is up by sales right now. I called and warned them and told them that the lines were chafing, and
What type of response are you getting from Emmett Gullick's and that?
None. So it's just like the liverboards that we've had problems with between Christian Kelly. So over the last few years, we've had our hands full with it, and something needs to be done because the town can't afford to pay for all of this stuff. So that's my thing. But my more concern than liverboards was the Airbnbs. The Airbnbs are a problem because they're paying us, up to maybe $150 in a mooring fee, and they're charging $5,000 to $7,000 a week for people to stay there. The people do not know how to do pump outs. They don't even know about a pump out. If we were to have a storm, they're not qualified to move the boat. Or if there was even another issue with somebody dragging down on something, or if, something catastrophic was to happen, I just don't think that, I don't think that Airbnbs on private moorings is a good thing for the town. So that's something that I was going to work with and write up a couple of proposals and then run them by you guys to see what you think about changing the rules on that.
Mm-hmm. I know a couple of our board members brought in some copies of registration forms and maybe felt that the registration form could include some more information. If whether that's helpful or not. And one of the previous liverboards who joined a meeting in the past mentioned that Nantucket Moorings, their insurance doesn't, their coverage ends when the wind speeds reach 50 miles an hour. And we spoke also with Matt Anderson, who said that his insurance does not have a wind limitation. So I guess, that would be a concern also as far as how insurance works out, whether it's the mooring handler at some point, and does, you know, is the liveaboard required to have insurance? And if not, you know, I mean, Sheila, you know what's best, and we're here to support you. And you know, if getting these things jotted down on paper, I don't know if I wish you could just like relay it to, like, I don't know, is this something in Mr. Gibson's realm where you could get him to draw it up? If you simply make the suggestions, or is this something you'd prefer to get your nose to the grindstone and put the pencil to paper with?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'll get, you know, input from lawyers and everybody else, but, and with you guys, it's just, right now we've been operational, we're still operational right now, and I just haven't had time to do it. There's a couple of, you know, that,
Yes.
but that is big regulation. The big thing you remember about Matt Anderson is a mooring handler. He does not have the authority to rent moorings. And we're gonna, you know, we've done a pretty big audit this year to find out what's going on with, you know, where our problems are, and we've pretty much gone mooring to mooring. We're still in the process with that. We're working with all the mooring handlers. We're also tossing around the idea to make the mooring handlers be licensed, so that if we do have some issues with them, we at least have some teeth to do some enforcement. So, I mean, there's lots of different things that we're thinking about doing. It's just, we in Harbor Master's office aren't at the point that we're doing paperwork yet. We're still full steam ahead doing our physical labor. So my plan was after the holidays to sit down and get this done, because we got to get the town pier taken apart yet. I got to take all the water lines off. There's a lot that needs to happen.
Yes.
And I just haven't had time to do that. And as I've explained, that's why I haven't been attending these meetings. And I do call.
Yes, you do. Yes.
And I'm not going to be there because I'm doing my job. So it's not that I'm trying to blow anybody off.
Understood. Thank you, Sheila.
Stuff to do.
Yes. And does some town pier work begin at some point this winter also?
We're hoping. We're still waiting on permits, but regardless, we have to take the floating docks apart, and
Yes.
And I have to keep them in good condition. So we're going to wet store some, we're going to dry store some to do some repairs, but until we know for sure what whether these permits, we're waiting on the Army Corps, I guess, right now is our last one that we're waiting to go through. And then in the building too, the building is going to be done. We're hoping starting in January.
Okay. Great.
Andy?
Board members, Mr. Brace?
So in reference to the discussion about when there's a storm, one of the liveaboards, Bill Fredericks, he was saying, just to refresh everyone's memory, he was saying that whenever there's a named storm, that then Nantucket Moorings kicks people off their moorings. That was his concern. And then to Sheila, you know, it was last fall, late last fall, probably November, December, when we first started talking about this liveaboard stuff, because it was that guy whose boat broke up on the outside of Code 2 eventually. And we were all talking about trying to solve this in the wintertime. And you said February was a good time to do that. And so we were kind of aiming for that. Then COVID came along, obviously, and stopped everything. So, you know, what we've done since then is to hold a workshop meeting where we invited all the mooring handlers to come and talk to us and tell us their issues and tell us what we were thinking. So we're all ears. We need your help. So as soon as you get some downtime and get into write some things down, we'd love it if you bring it to us so we can all work together.
Yeah, that's been the plan all along. You know, it's just COVID hit, and then they needed the town pier opened. They made us hire extra staff. We had to do stuff on beaches. We had to keep the beaches open longer. We had to do everything. So, I mean, we've been working with the mooring handlers, but we haven't had a meeting with them because they're out straight too. And so the thing is once, hopefully, you know, hopefully this winter won't be as bad as last winter was, and we can get some stuff done. But as soon as something gets written down, I'm not going to include you in it. I got to get it started. So.
Understood, Sheila. Thank you. Other board members on the proposal of the board regulations?
I don't know, Andy. I just think one of the things we did talk about is trying to make them more accountable, having them, like you said, a registration form so that we know who is in what boat and who owns the boat, and creating a paper trail so that if something happens, something comes up on shore, that it's very easy to contact the owner and get that going. And that's not to say, Sheila, that you haven't already been doing that. We know you have. We just want to make it easier for you. We want to avoid a situation like we had with Christian Kelly's boat. So we're sort of batting around ideas to try and make that happen.
Well, as far as the registration goes, I believe it was Mr. Bossy had a copy of one from another town that looked very, it had a lot of information on it. And I think what we should do as a board is put our thoughts and ideas in writing and get them emailed over to Sheila so that she knows what we're thinking, and we don't have to discuss it at the meeting here so much that it's just getting beat up and nothing really getting done. Let's put our concerns in writing and get them to Sheila. So if there's something in there she feels she will include in her revisions, it can be done at her discretion. Does the board feel comfortable with that? Mr. Brace?
I do, as long as after we've done that and given it to her and she's refined it, that she brings it back to us so that we can, further refine the whatever it is, the hybrid of her ideas and our ideas.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mr. Sidlowski?
I'm fine with that.
Mr. Franzuto?
Sure.
Has anybody else joined us? Dan Frank said he was having a hard time getting in. I told him to call the New York number.
Yeah, nope, not yet. We've still got the same 4 board members, and we've got Sheila and Tara and Kona and Val and Jim Sherlin.
Okay. If there's nothing else on the liveaboard regulations, I'm going to move forward. Bay Scallop Nub Rule proposed revisions. We've been keeping this on here. Began with Mr. Blair Perkins bringing it to our attention, and we've heard a lot from Val, and we haven't heard much from Blair since. I don't think this is a nub rule year, but we're keeping it on our agenda. More about health of the harbor, we've decided, and a lot of the fishermen have stated that they're used to the nub rule and don't want to make any changes. So if there's nothing else to discuss or nothing new with the board, let me know if there is now, board members. All right, if not, Val, do you have something you'd like to add tonight? Anything new? If not, we're gonna move forward with the meeting, and this will be continued again to another meeting.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I really don't have anything much new. I just want to reiterate that they're not all, the majority of the scallops, about 70%, 72% in the last couple of years, have spawned by mid-September. These are the nub scallops. So, but there are those others that haven't, and that seems to be regardless of size. So 2.5 inch rule at least will protect some of the scallops. Whether it's the best thing we should have, I'm not sure, but at least it helps. So I would say definitely we shouldn't rescind the nub rule. We should protect what scallops we can.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you, Val. Anybody else want to comment on the base scallop nub rule? If not, we'll move forward to the proposed pier at 46 Schimmel Pond Road. Mr. Brace, I believe you attended the Concom meeting. You have an update?
Yeah, I went to the Zoom meeting for that. And I'm just going to read my notes, basically. A guy, I guess he's one of their consultants, a guy named Dan Bailey, spoke first, and he said, we've moved the pier out of eelgrass beds. He said the pier is not 90 feet, it's 88 feet. He said thinks it won't be a hazard in navigation because it'll be in shallow water, and no boats will be able to go near it. And the way the public comment worked was you could type a comment in the chat field, and then Jeff Carlson would read that at the end of that part of the meeting. And so I said, well, if the water is so shallow that a boat can't go near it, how is it that this guy's boat's going to get near the thing? And I guess the guy Bailey responded saying that the pier only goes slightly further out than the bulkhead that's there. And I didn't respond, but I thought, it's one more thing that's in the harbor. And then this guy referenced past peer proposals by the town to do it maybe an extension of the town pier. He also referenced Petrol Landing, as well as expansion of Hither Creek Boatyard piers, and saying that his client had met the same performance standards. And then later in the meeting, R.J. Turcott, the resource ecologist for the Nantucket Land Council, he did a very good job of explaining that none of those references that this guy Bailey made to those other projects had anything to do with this project, that it was completely separate. He did a great job of, kind of refuting what this guy said.
Mr. Chairman,
He said, Mr. Bailey said, this is an improvement of an existing recently licensed pier on the property. He said that part of the application is an outhaul, which is there'll be a piling offshore from the pier, and it's a line with a pulley, and you'll pull in the boat, and because there was so much complaining about that at the meeting toward the end of this part of the public hearing, this guy said we will pull that, we'll strike that from the application, so it's not going to happen. He said there's no dredging proposed. He says it's because it's a pile supported structure, it won't restrict movement of sediment. Because they moved the pier out of the resources area, it won't kill shellfish. He said they don't feel the project is harmful to shellfish. They don't feel the pier will restrict shellfishing. Says it's not going to have any effect on wildlife or erosion, not going to accelerate the force of the waves, not going to impact fisheries, no impact to storm control, recreation, no impact to sparse eelgrass resources by the single piling for the outhaul, which they got rid of. They said they don't see this as a detrimental impact on bay scallops. And then, so when the commission members got to speak, Joe Topham said they can't make all those claims because they don't know for sure what's going to happen. So it appeared that Mr. Topham, Seth Engelberg, Maureen Phillips, Ian Golding, and Ashley Arisman all spoke against this in reference to the eelgrass impacts. And they did close the public hearing. So that means they have 3 weeks to render a decision. That's it.
Mr. Chair,
Okay. Mr. Franzuto.
yeah, what Peter referenced there, those other projects are all exempt under the bylaw. Municipal projects and projects in commercial areas are exempt from the prohibition. And I would still say, as Peter did very well in his letter when he said it, there's a prohibition on private docks and piers, and that should be the end of the discussion. Whether they want to appeal under some hocus pocus, I don't know. But those other projects that man cited are totally exempt under the bylaw. So that's all I have to say. It's not
Okay.
like that's the performance standard. It's not the performance standard. Those projects were allowed or are allowed. So.
Well, we've stated our how we feel as a board, and since the Concom has closed their public hearing, all we can do now is wait to hear their decision. I imagine there's no more public comment, so we'll just keep our ears open on that. I imagine we may hear it at the next meeting.
Well, Andy, excuse
Yes.
me, Mr. Chairman, we need to be prepared to craft yet another letter that will go to the Zoning Board of Appeals, because that's where, the prohibition is for, it falls under the town code for island perimeter restrictions, and that is the zoning. It's the zoning that the Zoning Board of Appeals will look at the Conservation Commission decision for guidance. They'll look at what was said and use that in their decision, but it's really the Zoning Board of Appeals that decides whether this is going to happen or not. So we need to be vigilant on that and get a letter out to them. So it'll be a while, maybe a week or two before they come up with a decision, and then it'll be at a Concom meeting where they do the decision. So I'll work to find out when that's going to happen and when they're going to go to ZBA so that we can be prepared.
All right, Peter, that would be great if you would stay on top of what's going on there. I would have to disagree still with the comment that it would not have a negative effect, or that there would be no negative effect to recreation. I still stand by my safety concerns with it, and I'd love to hear how Sheila may feel on this. I just know from looking from across the harbor from CO2 for many, many years, I've seen kids, maybe learning how to use a boat, but just skimming across in shallow areas in that Monomoy Shimo area, and whether they're in a little 13-foot whaler or an aluminum boat, or being taught by their dad or their granddad or something like that. And over the years, how many boats have hit that Abrams rock sticking out there, and here we are adding, having a proposal to add another pier and personally, I think there's a larger safety issue than is being made aware of. Fishermen between town and Pulpits Harbor, foggy moments that surprise us. This pier is going to be a solid structure that has no give to it when you hit it with a boat. So, Sheila, would you be willing to make a quick comment on your feelings on a new pier being constructed in this area as far as safety concerns in the harbor?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I have safety concerns, but I, to be honest with you, I was under the impression, same as Dave, that I thought there was a prohibition, so I didn't think this was even I thought that meant it was a non-starter, so I haven't spent a whole lot of time thinking about it. But if you want me to, I can definitely put some data together just to say how many times we've responded over there to one issue or another. But as I said, I thought the prohibition, like there weren't going to be any more private ones, so I just thought this guy was just spinning his wheels, and I just let him go on his merry way.
Yes, certainly. But hey, he seems to, he proposed it once, then withdrew it, and now he's proposing again, much shorter, hoping that it's considered minimal impact. And so good to know your feelings, and just keep it in the back of your mind. I'd certainly love to know, how many issues have happened in that area, whether it's striking the rock or grounding or any type of boating issue that's happened over there in a negative way. It would be good information to know at some point if this proposal.
Yeah. The other thing to remember too is like that shallow water that he's bragging about. That's where we push our paddle boarders, our kayakers, everybody. We push them into that shallow water so that they can be safe. So for him to say it's not going to have an impact on recreational boating, kayaking, canoeing, paddle boarding, stand-up paddle boarding is like a huge thing right now. So yeah. I definitely think, and I'll write you up something for next meeting or whatever.
Great. Thanks, Sheila.
Mm-hmm.
Board members, anybody else on the pier? If not, we'll move forward. Last item in old business, the oyster lease permit review. Mr. Lambrecht, has he joined us tonight, Mr. Brace?
No, he is not.
Okay. Does anybody have a comment on this at all? I know Mr. Carlson wants to see something done. We all want to see some progress made in the right direction for Mr. Lambrecht's sake. But if we have no new news tonight, we'll continue on. Anybody, board members, have any comments? Tara, any comment? Okay, if not, we'll move forward to new business. Slip lottery advertising. Mr. Sidlowski asked we bring this to the agenda tonight. So I'll let you open discussion.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. This should be quick, and I'm glad Sheila's here. I just have some suggestions to help make the slip auction a little bit more transparent. My wife came to me 5 days ago with a video on the Harbor Masters Instagram page, which showed the slip auction happening. They had the spreadsheets and they were going to do the selecting. And I was like, geez, I hadn't heard anything about it or whatever. And, I've looked at it in the past. And so I went back to the website. I went back to the Instagram. I went back to the Facebook page, and I went to the website for the town. And I know the town's website's been, but there wasn't any message, any method, or anything talking about it. And also, you can't find an application. There's no discussion of it. And with it coming out, it has an appearance that this is something that goes into there's a small group of people who know about it, and it goes to the same group of people. And because this is a town property and a town thing, I'm just suggesting, and since you're here, Sheila, you could hit the suggestion. I'm just suggesting that next year, prior to the end of the time for applications, that you make a mention of that on your social media presence on Facebook and Instagram. So you tell people that if they're interested in applying for the slip lottery, and maybe providing a link to an application so that a party that would want to do that could do that. Because right now it looks, if it hadn't been on Instagram, it just would have happened, and it just looks like it's some kind of an inside job. And I know that's not what it is, but appearances can be deceiving sometimes. So I'm just asking you to add it to your social media activities next year so that people can participate.
Sheila, your opinion, please.
Yeah, I mean, but we advertised like the same way we've advertised every single year. It was in the paper 3 times. It's exactly the same way we advertise every time. Our procurement through the town, doesn't consider social media to be our legal way of advertising.
I'm not asking you not to do the same way you do it in the paper, but a lot of people don't read all the little notices in the paper, and you do have a pretty significant Instagram and Facebook presence, and the fact that you put the auction on the Instagram so we could watch the video, but it was too late to apply, that just doesn't look good.
Okay.
Is that how it goes?
I appreciate your opinion, but I thought by posting it on YouTube Live was showing everybody that it was legal and it was above board and it was the way to go. So that's what we did. We'll take it into consideration for next year, but we certainly met all of our legal requirements as far as advertising, and we certainly had plenty of people sign up to participate in the lottery.
And so,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Brace?
in defense of the process, which I know we've been through with Sheila before, it's kind of a thing what Mr. Sedlowski is commenting on is kind of a thing that we all kind of go through when we're on this board. We've had meetings where we're discussing something really important, and then we get blowback from people in the community that said they didn't hear about it. They want to know why we're talking about this issue, and they didn't know. And we say the same thing that Sheila says. We say, we have posted the agenda the way we're supposed to do. We can't physically call every single person and contact them and tell them it's going on. She did her due diligence in advertising, although I agree with Tom that social media, even though it's not the approved way that the town has to follow advertising, social media is a good way to get it out there and say, hey, are there any stragglers out there? Anybody, if you want to apply, here's where you have to go do it for the lottery. And yeah, I mean, and I also think that the people that want to know about it will know about it and find out about it. How do I get a slip at the town pier? Well, I guess I got to call the town building or whoever, and then they find out how they apply and how they do it. So.
Yeah, and we really opened up the ways that they could apply. We put it on online moorings. We put it in several different places for people to apply. And as I said, but it's noted. It's noted. We'll think about it, for social media for next year. I just was doing it the way we've always done it, and we had plenty of people apply, so I didn't think that there was a lack of information out there, because we certainly had lines at our building, and we had several people go online and apply that way. So,
Can Tom, through you, Mr. Chairman, Tom, were you looking to get a slip?
I might have been. I last year I missed it. This year I missed it. I don't know. I didn't notice it, and I didn't. Most things I see these days I get on various social media things. I see Tara's social media. I see Year-Round Community, which didn't post a thing about it. So, I don't have an online I don't follow online moorings thing. I have a mooring. I didn't get notification from anybody that because I have a mooring. I didn't get a notification that it's there. So I look at it saying, it's not because of me, but I'm saying there are other people who just say, hey, I got the Instagram. If you hadn't done the auction on the Instagram, it wouldn't have come up. But all of a sudden my wife is saying, my gosh, they're doing the lottery. We missed it again. And it's one of those things where, yeah, maybe it is in the paper, and I do look at the paper, but I don't read all those little notices. And by the way, I'm an old guy, but young people basically live on social media, and that's why we have it. So I suggest is that it be put on social media, one time on Instagram, one time on Facebook before the deadline, right? And a link. I mean, if that's too hard to do, then don't do it.
Mr. Chairman.
Well, Tom, us younger old timers here on the island, we kind of mark it down on the calendar like a dentist appointment. It happens once a year. But Sheila's taken it, noted it. Sheila, just to confirm and clarify, the way you are doing it and is you're following state guidelines, correct?
Yeah, well, I'm following the guidelines that the town does all their procurement stuff through. It's not too hard. I never said it was too hard to put it on social media. We just didn't think of it. We had plenty of people signing up this way.
And all I was doing, I started by saying this, all I'm doing is making a suggestion that you put it on social media next year.
Mr. Chairman.
Good
Mr.
enough.
Chairman.
Who's this? Mr.
Dave.
Franzuto?
Yeah, just a couple points. To Peter's point about getting the word out, I've always been surprised at the number of email addresses that he sends the agenda and the minutes and everything to. I think that's it's great that we're getting the word out, but we seem to bend over backwards to make sure that all those people, and there's a lot of them, get meeting minutes, meeting agendas, et cetera. So I think we're doing a good job there. As far as the slip here, she's following the procurement regulations. It's a procurement basically, and she's following the same things that we've been doing since 1976 when the pier was built. So, is there a way to get the word out better? Probably. I don't know. I don't follow.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't follow social media, but by the same token, what I just said is we seem to go above and beyond to get the word out about SHAB, and if you're following SHAB, that's where it needs to be addressed, is right here on a Tuesday night. So that's all I got to say.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Franzuto. Anybody else, board members? If there's nothing else, we'll move forward to new business. This is brought to our attention by Jimmy Sherwin about the Fast Ferries rate of speed, normally off-season, fall, winter, spring, between the cut and the Jetties Rocks and Grant Point. Jim, you want to explain to us what you've witnessed and what you feel is happening, please?
Sure can, Andy. I think the consistency of the Fast Ferries running in Nantucket Harbor now has been for a number of years. I think their wake over and over and over, especially the 2 boats a day, is destroying eelgrass on the outside edge of horse shed across the Brant Point, and maybe also as well along the jetties. You can definitely see that the sand has moved in further into the eelgrass bed there, and it's almost to the point where it even happens at mid tide or less. And I think it's definitely causing an issue in that part of the harbor for the scallops and the eelgrass beds.
You know, we've heard this before, and you know, I'm just wondering what's our most effective way to deal with this, Sheila. I'll go to you first, I guess, and tell us your thoughts.
Well, it sounds like that when we pull the no-wake buoys is when they're starting to see the problem. So I can think about leaving the no-wakes out there. I've already pulled them in for the year, but doesn't mean I can't put them back out.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the only thing I can really think of.
I think it just needs to be, addressed with the steamship and Highline, and then, they're the only ones that are really the issue because like smaller boats don't create the problem. But I mean, they should just automatically be like at the cut all year long, no matter what.
Mm-hmm. And who's the best person for them to hear it from?
I can get in touch with them. I can certainly talk to them. I talk to them almost every day anyway. I can certainly say that we need them to start slowing down, and if they need a no-wake buoy out there to tell them to do it, then that's what we'll do.
Mm-hmm. I mean, those skippers should know where the no-wake buoy's placed, even though it's only there in the summer. Maybe they could be asked to consider that it's there year-round, even though it may not be. We've got fishermen that'll be keeping an eye on that and hoping that some positive results from it.
Andy, Miss Riley had her hand up.
All right, Tara.
Okay, sorry, I'm just yelling at my kids right now. Yeah, I mean, I also agree with the winter, the traffic, but I would extend it for the entire year. I mean, we're right there on Brant Point, and we see the increased ferry traffic and the schedules that they're trying to keep with additional boats and additional routes with the smaller boats just whipping right by there. I don't see anybody really slowing down at all. And I can tell by my filters that need to be changed every day, which, didn't really happen in the early days. Like it's just the turbidity is crazy. And that's just like a lot of sediment getting kicked up, by them coming in so quickly. And we are measuring the eelgrass beds in the horse shed. I haven't got the information for that area for this most recent survey, but we'll compare it, and see how things are changing with the margins of the eelgrass beds and if they're receding or not. But I don't know where you start. I mean, we've talked to some people about it and kicked it around, but I don't really know what a good avenue is to, proceed with trying to figure out if they can slow down, as they come in the jetties, not even like right at Brant Point, like slow down before that. I don't know why everyone comes in so fast to Nantucket Harbor, but in Hyannis, everything slows down way before they get in. I realize that the shape of the harbor and the depth might be different and there's different logistics that way, but it just seems like everyone's in such a rush when they come in Nantucket Harbor.
That's a good point, because getting into Hyannis Harbor does take quite a long time, and you hear them, they pull back on the throttle very early on the way into Hyannis. Very good point. Maybe they leave Nantucket on time, but they leave Hyannis late, so they're in a big hurry to get here. Sheila, of course, you're reaching out to them. Let's start with that and see what kind of results we get. Be much appreciated.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I also agree that the no wake buoy year round is a good idea. And I also think that, you know, comments from multiple sources would be a good idea. You know, we could send a letter to the Steamship Authority as well as to the High Line. We could speak with Rob Ranney, who's our representative. You know, the Steamship Authority's boat stops in January, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Franzuto.
Yeah, just a couple of things. We tried years ago to change it to the entrance of the jetties, and we got so much pushback because they couldn't keep up their schedule. But that doesn't mean it couldn't be addressed again. The no wake area is set by the town bylaw, so it can be changed. You know, after the appropriate hearings and all that other stuff. To leaving the buoys in year round, I gotta say that we get icing conditions. Sheila will lose those buoys unless
Yes.
she changes them over to ice buoys, which I don't think she has the funds to do because they're quite expensive, but just to that point.
Mhm.
But if the town feels strongly enough that they want to try and slow it down at the entrance to the jetties again, that's certainly something that we could look into, but it is where it is now because we lost the battle during the discussions for changing it. But that's just some thoughts.
We're
All right.
we're
Mr. Sher, idea was to have them throttle back at least by the cut in the jetty just before Kotu Point, and that would seem like a very good compromise compared to out at the end of the jetties. I would think they'd be reasonable about that.
But Mr. Chairman, the line now is from Kotu Point due west to the west jetty. So
Mhm.
you're talking about a distance from the cut to the Kotu Point of about 100 feet, 150 feet, if that. So,
Mhm.
you know, I understand what Jimmy Sherlin's saying, but that's the line now is Kotu Point due west to the west jetty. So we're pretty close to that line now.
Well, but that's not where they're throttling down. It sounds like they're pushing it just about to Brant Point.
Right, they are going and
Who
cut.
else kind of talk there? Jim?
Well, I wasn't disputing that spot, but I just give them a reference point in the winter when there's no buoy in the way.
Yeah.
It's just, you know they know what the rule is and what they should be doing, but they just don't want to do it.
Right. Where is the buoy normally, Sheila? The no wake buoy.
It's right about at the cut, just south of the cut. I usually line it up where the rocks meet the sand,
Okay.
and then go straight across, run a range from there. But I can definitely put the buoys back out. That's not a problem. Hyannis has theirs out, and that's why they slow down sooner in Hyannis. I think we should try moving them back to the cut and try that first. I think you're gonna get a ton of pushback both from both ferry lines and the locals if we try to do it all the way down the jetties. I don't.
Yeah.
I think we're going to get a lot of pushback on that because I have a hard enough time, and I understand that people don't think that the charter boats wakes are a problem, but they are. And I have enough problems fighting with our own local charter boats to stick to the no wake because they say they're on a schedule too. So I think we should go with the original suggestion. I'll talk to them. You guys write them a letter and tell them what's happening and explain all that stuff to them, scientifically, all that good stuff. And I'll go ahead and stick the buoys back out there. And I'll just use some of our ones that are not in the best of shape, so that if, God forbid, we did lose them, you know, we would have some more. But
Mhm.
I think that's the best way to start.
Thank you, Sheila. Anybody else?
Yes, Mr.
Board
Chairman.
Mr. Brace?
Sheila, just to clarify, you get the most problems from people. You said you'd have a hard time convincing people to have no wake starting where the jetties end, right? Is that what you meant?
I think I thought you were talking about at the beginning of the jetties, like out by the MB buoy. I thought that's what you guys were just saying. And I'm saying where we put the no wake buoy right now, I fight with the charter boat guys. I fight with a whole bunch of locals all the time, because they get around Brand Point and they hook it up, and we sit out there all the time, because when we have boats on the moorings and, you know, the town has their boats at Brand Point, the Coast Guard's boats are at Brand Point, whatever, we sit there all the time trying to slow everybody down. And I fight with the ferries. I'm not saying that they're not the biggest problem, but I don't think we would get a whole lot of local support to say that it should be no wake all the way from the MB buoy in.
Yeah. Absolutely. I would have to agree that would be extreme, being out at that end of the jetty. And it sounds like maybe, you know, a well-written letter about the negative effects that are happening at Horseshed, that we need to start an educational process so the charter guys understand, and also, you know, the steamship and the High Line. So we can't just single out the fast ferries. If the charter guys are doing this too, and even if it's not as much of a negative effect, they need to be playing by the same rules. So, yes, Mr. Brace?
I believe Mr. Sherlin is only commenting about the fast ferries, correct?
Yes.
So we should start with them. And I mean, yeah, we should start with,
All right.
with putting the buoys back, if that's possible for Sheila to do that. And then her communicating with the ferry services and us writing a letter. And
all right. Well, not only, you know, are we hearing this from Jim, you know, Tara's made a great point. She's keeping an eye on it. She's going to be measuring, you know, the eelgrass there. So, you know, some education on our part relayed to them, you know, I'd like to think would make a difference. We're not just asking this because we don't like speeders. We're asking this because of its negative effects on a shellfish bed. So it's more than just speeding. So they need to know this, and you know, hearing it from Sheila, they may just be thinking, well, you know, Sheila just wants to make sure we're not speeding. So let's add in our 2 cents, and Peter, if you're willing to draft up a letter about its effects on the Horseshed, and if we're capable and allowed to send that letter out without going through the select board, then let's do so. And if we need to vote to do that, clarify me on that now, if you would, Mr. Brace.
yes, I'll write it for the next meeting, and I'll clarify with Erica if it's okay for us to do that.
Okay. Sounds good. Anybody else? Comments on the excessive speed of the fast ferry near the Horseshed?
I'm happy to help with a letter, or if you think an additional letter from Natural Resources from the scientific end would be helpful.
the thing I'll need the most help with is making sure that I get right the impacts of
Okay.
of the ferry and what it's doing between where and where. I mean, of course, I know where the horse shed is, but I want to make sure that we say the right things.
Okay.
Mhm.
Chairman?
Mr. Franzuto.
Yeah, there's, I think if, and I may be wrong, but when he checks with Erica, but I think if you state in the letter that as an advisory board to the Board of Selectmen, we're submitting this letter of concern. And if Tara writes one to go along with that and Sheila's, that may get their attention.
Mhm. Okay. All right. Well,
More's
Peter,
better,
if
I
you,
think, in this case.
yeah, Peter, if you can orchestrate that, when you're putting pencil to paper and get in touch with Tara, she's offered. So let's take advantage of that. And Sheila is on board. So,
Wait,
Mr. Sherwin,
what are you asking me to do?
well, you're gonna pencil a letter together for our next meeting, and when you if you need some assistance with science from Tara, get it. Or if you decide that a separate letter from her attached with ours, and one from Sheila also is a better way to go. You make that choice in the next 2 weeks, and we'll see what we have for our next meeting to look over and discuss and get
Okay,
checked
so
out.
are you saying I shouldn't go to Erica and ask?
No, I would say you need to get clarification from Erica between
Yeah.
now and then, but draft the letter.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
But the other point quickly is those guys driving those boats, they don't know horse shed from nothing. And they don't know
Right.
bay scallops from eelgrass from nothing. They're probably nice guys, but they drive boats for a living and they got a schedule to keep. So if you explain the science and and our concerns to them, in addition to the speed, which is causing the wake, although you can be going at some of these boats draw a big sea behind them at a slow speed, but anyway, neither here nor there. The point is that I think if you hit them with the concern from the advisory board that addresses both Shellfish and the harbor master and the shellfish biologist, I think that's a good approach.
It strengthens the whole statement. So that's
So one letter or letters from each?
I would recommend letters from all three.
Okay.
sounds good.
And maybe a map of the harbor actually pointing to the horse shed, I don't know.
It's
Possibly a map showing where the current no wake zone is in relationship to the horse shed would explain it really well.
Okay.
got all that, Peter.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you for your considerations on this, Tara and Sheila. Any more comments, Mr. Sherwin? Does it sound like we've covered enough ground for this meeting on this?
And I think Mr. Sherlin has left the meeting. Yep.
All right. Public questions or comments? Kona, anything? Okay. Anything for our next meeting? If not, I'll harbor a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
All right, Mr. Brace made the motion to adjourn, seconded by Mr. Sidlowski. All in favor, Mr. Franzuto?
Aye.
And I am in favor as well. Unanimous to adjourn the meeting.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. And future meeting, next meeting's November 17th. Good
Okay.
night, everybody.
Good night.
All right,
Thank
Peter, I'll call you tomorrow.
Okay, Dave.